Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the North Main Minute. I'm Joshua Dobie. A question that we're getting daily now, probably at this point. I'm trying to think of the number of times that we've been asked here over the last 6 to 9 months or so, and I lost count some time ago. It has to do with a broad question. I'm just going to generalize it here for means of our discussion, is are we in a recession right now? Now, from a pure academic standpoint, my answer is yes. We had 2 negative quarters in terms of the academic definition most commonly used. We had 2 negative consecutive quarters of GDP, basically where GDP came down for 2 consecutive quarters, 2 consecutive 90-day blocks. So from an academic standpoint, we are, and if you look at it with regards to the yield curve, for those of you who are very academically oriented or watch these kinds of things like I do, we're in an inverted yield curve scenario, which in many, many instances, not all, but in many, many instances is indicative of being in or getting ready to go in to a recession. So I'm just bringing up those 2 macro factors very, very quickly to say it's possible we're already in one. Actually, most recessions, just sidebar, are defined usually after we're all the way through them. But we're probably in one, looking at one. There could be any number of variables right now. But it certainly is true that we are not in the same kinds of spaces from a growth standpoint that we were a couple, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think that's fairly safe to say as we have a little bit of distance from those spaces. So now that I'm saying that, what should we do now? Well, there may be any number of answers, so that's not going to be very helpful to you, I know, up front here, and I'm not going to give you any specific recommendations to your space. Very important you reach out to your tax advisor, your financial advisor. You can always call us at North Main Financial, but a couple of broad ideas to keep in mind. First one, you hear me say this all the time, I know, sounded like a broken record, even though we don't have records that much anymore, but sounded like a broken record because it's so important. Be financially flexible. So important. I can't overemphasize that. Because if you're financially flexible, you really don't think about it that much when things are going well, but boy are you thankful for it whenever things are not going well financially for you. So maintain that financial flexibility, maintain that emergency fund, slush fund, live below your means, all those good kinds of things to make sure that no matter where we are in the cycle, that you're going to be just fine from a financial standpoint. Second big item to keep in mind, you want to make sure that you're diversified. When it comes to a recession or a market pullback, we're seeing it this year, even though it's kind of hard to see just off the top that we're in this kind of space. We have parts of the market, actually just a couple of parts of the market, doing famously well right now when we're talking about the stock market as measured by our most popular stock indices. A couple of parts doing very, very well right now. And then we have a whole bunch of parts over here which are flat to negative. But you don't see that as much because the indexes look positive year to date in many instances. So that gets shrouded over, that gets covered up a little bit, and so sometimes it's hard to see that. We're seeing it here at North Main Financial because of how we watch things, but it's very, very important, coming back to this idea of diversification. You don't want to be hyper concentrated in any one area of the market. I know it gets tempting. When you're looking at things that are going great gangbusters on this end of things, you're like, wow, that fear of missing out, right? It's my daughter's explained to me, FOMO, the fear of missing out, I get it. But you want to be very careful of that if it's already had a big run. Because very often, you see me do this a lot as well, mountains have 2 sides. You got the upside, and sometimes you also have an equal or even greater downside. So you want to be mindful of that kind of possibility that's sitting out there whenever you're looking at diversification inside of your portfolio. And then the third big item that I want you to keep in mind relative to this idea, are we in a recession or not? What should I do? And it's cliched, and I'm going to tell you that up front, but there is some applicability here when you're thinking about your overall plan and portfolio, and that's plan for the worst and hope for the best. Very rarely do either of those happen. Very rarely does the worst happen. Very rarely does the best happen. But the idea behind the cliche is make sure, coming back to that first point, make sure you got flexibility. Meaning if you're planning for the worst, and I'll put that in quotes, and it still works, then if the best happens or something close to the best happens, you're going to be fine. But if the not so great happens, you should also be fine as well. And that's a foundational item when it comes to good financial planning. If you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial, perhaps take a look at your overall plan. Is it the kind of thing that can weather a downtick? I'll tell you that in our experience here at North Main Financial, most folks don't understand how much risk they have in their portfolio until we have a negative experience. When it's going up, everybody feels great, and I understand why. It's very natural. But most folks don't think about it until they have experienced a negative kind of thing, and then they're looking at it saying, I wish I would have. definitely don't want to do that. So if you'd like to take a look at that and come over to see us here at North Main Financial Group, love to chat with you, love to take a look at your portfolio and to make sure that it continues to align with your goals. Find us at northmainfinancial.com.